A warm welcome to TV Africa News and thank you for always joining us. This is Africa Today. My name is Najuma Luima, but first are the headlines. Museveni receives credentials from 8 new envoys. Algeria buries ex-president Bouteflika in muted funeral. And in sports, URA humiliate Ethiopian coffee advanced to first round. A warm welcome once again. Now the news in detail. 8 newly accredited envoys to Uganda from Sweden, Nigeria, Ireland, Hungary, Angola, Australia, Oman, and Indonesia have presented their credential letters to President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. This was done at separate ceremonies that took place at State House in Entebbe. Nalugo has more. The new ambassador of Sweden to Uganda, Karina Maria Hackinson, flanked by her spouse, Carlos Kaula, was the first to present her credentials to President Museveni and hailed the existing historic and friendly relations between Sweden and Uganda. Hackinson pledged to further strengthen bilateral ties between the two countries, Sweden and Uganda. The new ambassador of Nigeria to Uganda, Zana Umaru Bukakoro, who was accompanied by his wife, Mrs. Falmata Yusufari Bukakoro, also presented his letters of credence to President Museveni and briefed him about the security situation in Nigeria, which he said had scored some progress in the fight against terrorists in his country. The new ambassador of Ireland to Uganda, Kevin Colgan, accompanied by his spouse Catherine Colgan, said he was delighted to be back to Uganda after 20 years. The new ambassador of Hungary to Uganda, Solta Mesaros, also presented his credential letters to President Museveni and noted that Uganda and Hungary have had dynamic relations. The envoy, who was accompanied by the honorary consul of Hungary in Uganda, Gordon Wavamuno, pledged to strengthen further the economic and social cooperation between the two countries. The new ambassador of Angola to Uganda, Sianga Kivuila Samuel Abilio, based in Nairobi, extended warm greetings from his president Manuel Lourenco to President Museveni and the people of Uganda. The new Australian envoy to Uganda, His Excellency Luke Joseph Williams, based in Nairobi, appreciated Uganda's contribution to the stabilization of peace in the region and Africa, and also reported that Australia is doing very well in the control of COVID-19 pandemic. Other ambassadors that presented their credentials included the new Oman envoy, Saleh Sulaiman Ahmed Al-Hati, and Indonesia's new ambassador to Uganda, Dr. Mohamed Heri. Opposition Forum for Democratic Change (FDC) has asked government to consider teaching children in shifts as they reopen schools as a way of preventing the spread of COVID-19. Government plans to reopen schools in January next year. We have more.
Addressing journalists at their party headquarters in Najanankumbi, the Deputy Party Secretary General Harold Kaija said that schools have been closed for over 3 years, which may affect the education sector of the country.
Through education, you see, if you want to kill a country, you kill two sectors, education and health. The COVID pandemic just showed us that the health is what? Off shelves. Have no health sector. That one we all agreed to talk about. Now the education, we started looking around. Schools are sold. You are aware? I have seen about 200 schools on market. Others have become chicken farms.
Kaija also accused government of allowing international schools to operate, yet local schools have been closed, which bridges a gap between the rich and the poor.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Museveni and team have created a systematic program of apartheid, whereby the haves and have-nots live in different worlds. The poor and the rich live in different worlds. They have their own schools, which are ongoing.
He therefore asked government to consider reopening of schools where students study in shifts in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19 among learners.
Children, even I have had this other curriculum, whereby you must learn a few things, technical work. You can learn technical work in the evening. Or those who don't learn in the evening, learn in the what? During the day, in the morning hours.
The minister in charge of higher education, John Chrysostom Muyingo, said last week that they do not have a plan for school reopening at the moment, and the Ministry of Education is currently carrying out consultations, and no decision has yet been made on when schools can reopen. Nalugo Muyingo, Africa Today.
Less than 2 months before South Africa begins municipal elections, President Cyril Ramaphosa campaigns for voter registration and to vote for the ANC in Soweto. South Africa and African National Congress President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed a crowd of supporters during his visit at Nomazamo Informal Settlement in Soweto.
The municipal polls on November 1st will test whether the party, which freed South Africa from the racist apartheid regime, can overcome a situation so dire that members and supporters themselves are losing patience. Cyril Ramaphosa, however, says he is rest assured about the votes, adding that ANC's intention is to win the municipality elections. His electioneering in the informal settlement of Nomzamo Park has been met with both excitement and hunger. While the opposition has yet to make major national inroads against the historic party, the ANC has been voted over the years, even more in the local elections according to analysts on polls prediction. Since the end of August, employees of the ANC, which is reportedly choking on several millions of dollars of debt, have been on strike and staging sporadic protests asking to be paid. To make matters worse, the understaffed party failed to register hundreds of candidates before an August 23rd deadline, which the Electoral Commission has since extended, sparking outrage among the opposition.
Let's take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Four figures of the mobilization against the third term of former President Alpha Conde received a triumphant welcome on Saturday in the streets of Conakry. The triumphant return to Guinea of the four figures turned into a demonstration of thousands of people, which caused a monster traffic jam on Saturday, September 18th in Conakry. Guinea's ruling junta on Saturday ruled out exile for detained former President Alpha Conde and said transition towards civilian rule would be done in accordance with the will of the people. The statement from the ruling council came in defiance of international pressure for Conde's release and a 6-month timetable for elections after a coup on September 5th sparked global condemnation. It also followed the visit on Friday of a mission from ECOWAS led by two heads of state from the 15-member West African bloc. A junta spokesman, Kano Amara Chamara, at the ruling council's first press conference on the 6-month deadline, said that Mamadi Doumbouya, the Kano who led the coup, told the visiting delegation that it was important for ECOWAS to listen to the legitimate aspirations of the people of Guinea. Chamara added that Doumbouya stressed the need not to repeat the mistakes of the past, recalling that national consultations to outline the transition had begun on Tuesday and that only the sovereign people of Guinea will decide its destiny. During their visit, the Ghanaian head of state Nana Akufo-Addo, whose country holds the rotating presidency of ECOWAS, and his Ivorian counterpart Alassane Ouattara presented the junta with the organization's demands for elections within 6 months. Moving on, Algeria on Sunday buried Abdelaziz Bouteflika, the North African country's longest-serving president, at a cemetery for its independence heroes, but without the honors accorded to his predecessors. Bouteflika passed away on Friday, aged 84, after a career which took him being from the world's youngest foreign minister to one of its oldest heads of state, but ended with a humbling fall from power.
The veteran strongman Bouteflika had lived as a recluse since quitting office in April 2019 after the military abandoned him, following weeks of street protests backed by his bid to run for the 5th presidential term. His muted funeral, with no lying in state and just 3 days of national mourning instead of 8, reflected a mixed legacy that left many Algerians indifferent to the ceremony. Bouteflika, who had first served as foreign minister in the mid-1960s, swept to the presidency in 1999 on a wave of popular support as his amnesty offer to Islamist militants helped bring an end to a decade-long civil war. But despite economic progress amid high oil prices in the early years of his rule, crude exporter Algeria later saw growing corruption and unemployment, which became key drivers of the Iraq pro-democracy movement, which eventually ousted him. On Sunday at his funeral, attended by his successor President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, the Minister of Algeria's independence fighters Laïd Rebiga read an eulogy. An armored vehicle towed his flag-draped coffin on a gun carriage adorned with flowers and escorted by lines of police on motorcycles.
Away from that, Mali's transitional Prime Minister Choguel Maïga alluded to a potential military partnership between his country and the Russian company Wagner, raising French concerns that potential Russian involvement would compromise their ongoing military operations in the country. We have more on this report. Mali's transitional Prime Minister Choguel Maïga said that Mali must broaden their potential for cooperation to bolster their national defense in the face of international partners who altered their policy or have decided to leave Mali to withdraw to other countries. A senior UN official said on Friday that possible partnership between the government of Mali and the Russian private security company Wagner should fully respect human rights and international law if it comes to pass. Asked at a press conference about the possible impact of a deployment of Russian paramilitary contractors on the 15,000-strong UN peacekeeping mission, Jean-Pierre Lacrosse, the UN Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, has said he had seen no final agreement on the subject. He added that it's important for them to be able to continue delivering their mandate with the full support of the host government, with the full cooperation and coordination with the local armed forces, without obstacle, without access denial, and without threat. France and Germany have warned they will reconsider their military engagement in Mali if a contract is struck between the Malian government and the controversial Wagner company already present in several other African countries. Russia has denied negotiating a military presence in Mali. Let's once again take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, the right to know. In our business news today, Kenyans voiced fury on Thursday at a jump in fuel prices, which threatened to pile on the misery for a population already suffering economic hardship because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fuel prices are now at record levels after the country's energy regulator this week put an end to subsidies on petrol, diesel, and kerosene that were introduced earlier this year to ease anger over the surging cost of living.
Kenya, the East African economic powerhouse, has suffered huge job losses as gross domestic product shrunk last year for the first time in 3 decades, with COVID-19 battering usually strong sectors like tourism. The scrapping of the subsidies, which took effect on Wednesday, increased the price of petrol in Nairobi by about 6% to a maximum of almost 135 shillings a litre. And the cost is set to rise further with the introduction of a near 5% excise duty on fuel from October 1st. James Mwangi, 42, a second-hand car dealer in Nairobi, said that the increase in fuel was just ridiculous and shows that the government is not in touch with the reality on the ground. Marceline Njeri, 35, who works at a 5-star hotel in Nairobi, said that she is already trying to survive on 60% of her usual salary. Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto, who is in open conflict with President Uhuru Kenyatta, criticized the decision, warning it will lead to a higher cost of living across the board. The Consumers Federation of Kenya warned of a huge hit on the economy high cost of production, surge in food prices, transport and overall a higher cost of living. Kenya's GDP dropped to 10.75 trillion shillings last year, and the economy also shed 738,000 jobs, with informal workers such as small traders and artisans bearing the brunt of those losses.
In our health news today, South Africans living in Alexandra, Johannesburg, marked World Clean-up Day on Saturday by cleaning the banks of the polluted Uganda River. The river is a source of drinking water for the residents, but there is a serious problem with sewage pollution on the river due to an aging infrastructure and a backlog of maintenance. According to Janki Matlala, a community leader, the water that is in the Uganda is the one that they are drinking. Hence, they had to clean the river and made sure that the river is clean. For Bianca Wanenberg, one of the organizers, a key aim was to demonstrate to residents that it is possible to restore the river to a state where it is safe to swim in and drink the water. Faith Masango, a volunteer, said that he thought that it would be a great thing for him to take part in that initiative as it benefits the environment and also the people around the place. Masango added that it's the community that's the closest to the river that she felt is the most impacted as well, and they are hoping that going forward will come and mobilize and see the significance of the river. Around 50 million volunteers in 180 countries have picked up litter beside rivers, on beaches and in forests on World Cleanup Day. Each year, 8 million tons of plastic end up in the oceans, which are also where 70% of the world's oxygen is generated. In our sports news today, Uganda Revenue Authority Football Club brushed aside Ethiopian Coffee 3-1 in the return leg of the CAF Confederation Cup preliminary round at the Bahilda International Stadium on Sunday, 19th September 2021. Kachanchu reports.
Cromwell Rothomia, Ashraf Mandela and Captain Shafiq Kuchi Kajimu were on target for the tax collectors, who qualified 5/2 on aggregate. Asirat Tunjo pulled a goal back for the hosts with 20 minutes via a penalty, but it arrived late. Rothomia scored the opener in the 40th minute as the Ugandan side took the lead against the run of play. Mandela doubled the lead in the 52nd minute before skipper Kajimo made it 3 in the 55th minute. Winger Joachim Ojera, who had commanded the starting slot ahead of Vianney Sekajugo, was the first change 2 minutes after the hour mark. Tunjo pulled a goal back for Ethiopian side on the 70th minute mark via a well-taken kick from the penalty spot. With 17 minutes to play, Rothomia and Kajimu were stretched off injured before they were replaced by Living Carbon and Benjamin Nyakojo, respectively. With 4 minutes to play, tax collectors called for a double change. Stephen Mukwala and Saidi Cheyune paved way for Ibrahim Dada and Moses Seruide, respectively. Uganda Revenue Authority qualified 5-2 on aggregate to advance to the first round, where they battled Egyptian opposition Al Masry.
Now, before we end our news bulletin today, let's take a recap of our top stories. Museveni receives credentials from 8 new envoys. Algeria buries ex-president Bouteflika in muted funeral. And in sports, URA humiliate Ethiopian Coffee advanced to first round. That was the news. Thank you for always keeping it TV Africa. Please do stay tuned. More programming coming your way.